Sometimes we almost take possession of American politics as though we are from America. But the thing is, America is a superpower. It's the largest economy and by far, the largest military in the world. So, whether we like it or not, in one way or the other, you will meet America.
I am an African.
Now, if we look at the options that that America had in this election, sometimes we almost take possession of American politics as though we are from America. But the thing is, America is a superpower. It's the largest economy and by far, the largest military in the world. So, whether we like it or not, in one way or the other, you will meet America in one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So, Donald Trump never visited Africa.
Okay.
Melania Trump visited Africa. She visited Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Donald Trump never visited Africa. I think he visited Egypt. I'm not too sure. But yeah, his policy on Africa was definitely not a priority. The priority was mostly for Southeast Asia and Asian countries, and sort of confronting China with more resources. Both Biden and Trump want to confront China, but Biden has a bit more spread out priorities. Although Asia is still the main focus, Southeast Asia primarily, and also getting India into that mix, into confronting the United States as well in Asia. Trump never visited Africa. He's famous for the statement that was a reported statement that he called Africa a shithole, and some African countries responded with wonderful tourism adverts. And he also mistook Zambia. I don't know if he took Zambia and Namibia or just called them Nambia, like mixed both of them. So yeah,
it could be misspeaking.
Yeah, he doesn't have much with regards to Africa, and one of the JD Vance, for example, when you look at the nomination for some of the so ambassadors, when they get appointed, have to be nominated. The Senate has to basically put them through a series of interviews to see whether they're fit to be deployed to be ambassadors representing the United States. So one was being sent to Ghana, the US ambassador to Ghana, and she was she was questioned by JD Vance on values. He was quite uncomfortable with the fact that American ambassadors are promoting values, human rights and democracy, rather than promoting sort of hardcore economic military interests. And he felt that is why America is not looking like the better alternative to China. And when you look at Africa, US policy in Africa, it's increasingly becoming informed by competing with China, rivaling China.
Yeah.
Joe Biden, on the other hand, was supposed to make a visit to Africa. It was supposed to have been the first visit in about 16 years since Barack Obama visited Africa. I think that last visit was to Kenya and Ethiopia, maybe, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Trump never visited. So Biden wanted to visit Angola, but the trip was postponed due to Hurricane Milton, which was happening in the southern part of the United States, southeast. That was primarily around the Angola, Congo, and Zambia Lobito corridor, the multi-billion project.
Yeah.
And this feeds into the same issue of competing with China. So America's had multiple programs with regards to Africa, affecting Africa. There was the Blue Dot program. The Blue Dot program basically is like, it's basically China has this thing called Belt and Road Initiative. So Belt and Road Initiative includes numerous infrastructure projects. It was started in 2013. Includes so many infrastructure projects that are being built across the developing world, built by China, and then in return, China gets to send its own materials to build. So it sends its own materials to build, construction companies to build, and controversially also its people to build. So it's also feeding the Chinese economy, and then ultimately giving Africa the capacity to trade more and trade better with China. So it's infrastructure to enhance trade with China. So it's a sixth type of trade network. So the United States recognized this, and in the last 20 years, China has grown so rapidly and outpaced the United States as Africa's main trade partner, and even now in arms as well. China and Russia remain the biggest arms origin for Angola. And Angola has been mentioned by Biden last year in December that Angola is the most important country for US priorities. Why? Because the Lobito corridor reaches copper, the copper Central African copper belt, which is one of the main ingredients for electronics and semiconductors, sorry, for artificial intelligence. And China is also competing in the artificial intelligence and technology industry. So if you want in Africa, you have to be able to get the resources. And Biden has Biden sounds nice and everything, but whether this is nice or not, in terms of US interests, he has been very assertive. AFRICOM commanders have visited multiple African countries. General Langley, Anthony Blinken has visited Africa on numerous occasions. The defense secretary also visited Somalia. He visited Kenya. I think he's also visited Djibouti. He visited Angola. So yeah, there's a lot that is going on that the US is recognizing that it has to play catch up. We actually did an episode on China in Africa.
So basically,
Yeah.
from you don't think that this is a ideal situation or the best situation that could have happened for African countries?
Trump's election?
Yeah.
I
think you're sort of stating that, I think there was a little bit more cooperation on the Biden side then.
No, I think yes, the Biden side is much more willing to send people out to Africa and actually make deals with Africa. If we're judging Donald Trump's next presidency by his past presidency, the Biden administration is very much intent on engaging with African leaders and securing American interests in Africa.
Yeah, I mean, you had Kamala Harris traveling to Zambia. I mean,
Kamala Harris also visited countries that normally are overlooked, actually. No one would have expected a state visit by Donald Trump, by Joe Biden, an American president in Angola, or even a vice president visiting a country like Zambia. They normally go to the usual countries, South Africa, Kenya,
Nigeria.
Ghana.
Yeah.
Ghana has the African American symbolism. And obviously Egypt, because Egypt is, a major country when it comes to security. With regards to Israel and Palestine. But yeah, the United States under Donald Trump is going to be very interesting. It's going to be very, but I think the thing is, many reasonable advisors will tell him that if you're not going to, I think he'll be forced to do a lot of what Biden did in Africa, because what Biden is doing is primarily for US interests.
Yeah.
And if you sleep on that, you know what I mean? If you sleep on it, you lose out. And I'm sorry to be talking about Africa in terms of pawns, but we can talk about what Africa should do. But when it comes to US point of view, if the United States is not serious about having more leverage over China, trying to outcompete China as the National Security Strategy 2022, this is Joe Biden's National Security Strategy.
Yeah.
Each presidential term, every few years, they create a new one, and you get to see how they're going to posture themselves. One of the key goals was to outcompete China in Africa, right? To show that I'm a competitive partner, goods, it's worth it. It's worth better off building an American bridge than a Chinese bridge. Because the argument was, China, you get value for your money, and you don't get told about human rights and so on. This is advantageous to leaders, of course. But if you are, a pressure group or an activist, obviously, if there's no country that would be willing to back you, it's going to be a bit more difficult. I think, so economically, I think Donald Trump will be forced to continue. Things like the Lobito corridor are too big to just ignore. So the biggest infrastructure investment the US is making in African history. And it's just it's too big a project to just ignore. And then other things I think we remain the same is Kenya as a major non-NATO ally. It's the first sub-Saharan African major non-NATO ally.